Everybody, this is my Module 5 discussion. Let's get started. This, I think, is going to be a long one. Hopefully not, but we'll see. So, Chapter 7, question number 1, how and why do the authors differentiate between leadership and management? This was a really interesting topic to me. I've never really differentiated between the two before, and to see it in the text was really interesting. I'm glad I got assigned this chapter. I got to do my RRP on this one, and I really found it interesting. The text talks extensively about the differences. It refers to many different authors as it talks about it and gives a bunch of different angles on it. Basically, what I got out of it is that one thing, the page 194, somebody said, the managers manage and the leaders lead, which kind of doesn't really help clarify things at all. I thought that was kind of funny. But it kind of comes down to leaders really focus on the big picture. They're more about having a vision and inspiring people in the team. Management deals more with planning, organizing, controlling organizational resources. It talks about that on page 193. Leadership, on the other hand, is more about the communication that modifies attitudes and behaviors. So I did find it interesting to note, I believe on page 193 it talked about a leader should always be a good manager, but a manager is not necessarily always going to be a good leader. So I found that pretty interesting overall. Question number 3, discuss the importance of mentorship and coaching in your desired career track. So I really feel that mentorship is very important for long-term development. When I was a surveyor, I had a mentor. It's required in my industry to work under somebody that's licensed for a number of years before you can even qualify to take the test to try to get your own license. So it's really required in the industry and required by my company at the time. So the mentor that I had, he was my direct supervisor, and he took his responsibility very seriously. He'd been a professional for years, and 20 some years as a surveyor, and so he understood how important it was that he pass on the knowledge that he had to me, and so he took it really seriously, and he was really hard on me. He was very hard to please. It was very difficult to ever do a project to his standards. No matter how good I did, he always found something that I could have done better. It was really frustrating for a number of years while I worked for him. As I got better and better, I started getting a little bit smug about it because he'd find some little thing, and I just knew that was the best he could come up with. But while I hated him for the first year and was really frustrated the second year, overall, he really constantly pushed me to be the best that I could be. And, because of that constant pressure from him to do better and do well at my job, now, it really ingrained into me as an individual in my work ethic. It affected me in a lot of areas. I'm a lot more detailed and thorough than I ever would have been, without his oversight and mentorship. His training really was invaluable to me now as I look back, and I'm pretty grateful. Overall, my boss was an example of supervisory coach. He was a supervisory coach discussed on page 221, but he's also a good example of a mentor as described on page 217. He really did teach me the ins and outs of the industry and what was expected of me as a professional and as a manager of the crews that I would have to manage as I moved into a leadership position. So for chapter 8, question number 1, define and differentiate between identity, image, and culture. So this one is a little bit tricky for me, but so organizational image is what the external sees, what the outside world sees, really what the company tries to project, and depending on how the chips fall, what the outside world actually sees when they think about the company. Organizational culture is what exists internally that affects the behavior and what is considered acceptable behavior within the company. So organizational culture is the communication in between us all that that we have an idea of what's acceptable. Organizational identity is what the employees within the organization see and are able to try to identify with. The relationship between these three elements is described on page 237. I really like the diagram there with the three elements and how they interoperate. The identity affects the image and the culture, just as the image and the culture affect the identity. It's kind of a circular pattern where the identity is kind of the focus. Each employee within a company sees the company in a certain way, and that's its identity to them. And then because that's how they see it, they behave in a certain way that then affects the culture and also affects what the outside world sees. I believe is kind of a summary, the best I can come up with. As an example of this, one company that I worked for, our motto, or our image, our motto, was progressive solutions, traditional values. And that, really kind of sets the stage for what they were trying to project as an image to the outside world. They wanted to be seen as being progressive with advanced technology options and ability to come up with solutions that were innovative. Traditional values, though, high quality, exceptional customer service, always doing the right thing, strong ethics. These are the things that were important, to the company in terms of what the owner wanted to project as an image. The culture, on the other hand, was one of always trying to catch up. We were never in front of the ball on any projects. I mean, we did okay on some, but most of the time we were putting out fires. Unfortunately, this resulted in some poor quality work, falling down for customers, not really able to always come through on time. And if we did come in on time, it was probably because some quality was sacrificed while we rushed through a project. I'm sad to say. So the identity, as I saw it from within the company, for me was somewhere in between there. Like early on, I really wanted to believe in this high tech, high value, strong ethic image that was kind of fed to me, kind of like in the case study. Came on board with one image of what the company was, and I identified with that. But then, as I was in the company longer, I was able to see that while they were trying to be progressive, we did have a lot of high-tech, expensive equipment around. It wasn't always implemented very well, wasn't managed very well. And so things were always falling behind. Quality is one of the important, traditional values. And unfortunately, because of the poor management and falling behind, quality suffered. So as project after project went over budget or had low quality issues, the identity that I saw changed, and I lost a lot of faith in the company over time. And it took me a little while, but I really came to see that our leadership and management in that particular company really had some faults and weren't able to keep up what they were trying to project. So with that slipped the image that was projected. So because of the way that I saw the company's identity, my ability to identify with that company was challenged. And so as a salesperson or as somebody that is part of creating the image for the company, I had a difficult time remaining honest and showing saying this or that would